it's been a whirlwind these last 12 months, 18 months, I would say, from moving from markets to an actual premises and finding your way and finding your feet and learning things as you go. It's like you building it and sailing it at the same time. So there's times when there's rough seas and you just gotta figure out how to navigate. But yeah, it's been a good journey so far. Hopefully, it'll continue being as fantastic.
Oh, that's what I like to hear, mate. You are probably one of the most optimistic people I speak to. One of the things I try and talk to clients all about is a change in mindset, how you think about the way you do things. And one of the things I've always really liked about you is that you don't worry about competition. Whereas everybody else kind of looks outward and goes, they're doing this and they're doing that. Or even some of my clients look at your progress and go, look at what Dre's doing. I'm like, it's great to monitor progress and it's great to look at what other people are doing, but it should never be used as a comparison because we're all on a different journey. But I found that it's one thing that you don't really note anybody else as competition.
Yeah, well, when I started, I saw like a lot of other Instagrams that were much bigger than me, and they would show how many orders they'd have, and starting out, it was quite daunting to be like, oh, will I ever reach where they are, and stuff, and it didn't give me a very good feeling. And from that moment, I thought, I really need to use the true sense of the word, mind my own business. But we think of it as not being nosy, but really and truly, what it means is to take care of your own business. And when I made that focus into actually focusing on my product and the business and the service and everything like that, and I ignored everything around me, like is when things started become great. It's like a horse running a race and they put the blinkers on the horse so the other horses don't distract it. So it's gunning for the front. Like, so I kind of use that same premise.
Kind of like
And
eyes
yeah,
forward all the time.
eyes forward all the time. And
No,
like we really don't know how other businesses are actually doing. And it's hard to gauge who's doing better than who. So instead of having that stress, I just think, you know what, let me just focus on being better this week than last week, you know?
that's it's perfect, mate. For the big thing that I talk about, it's all about compounding effectiveness. It doesn't matter how you stack up against other people. It's what you said. You're only in competition with yourself yesterday, last week, last month, last year, and making teeny tiny changes each and every week is what helps grow a business, not radical, drastic, disastrous, unplanned change, which we see quite often in hospitality. So questions I was going to ask, already going to go off on a tangent. With you mentioning about obviously having a completely different mindset and you realizing that, well, I need to mind my own business and worry about what I'm doing. What kind of triggered that? Was there a point where you kind of went, well, there's no point following what these guys are doing because that's not me, or I need to stop worrying about other people and concentrate more on what I'm doing? But was there like a specific point in time where you went, well, get on with it?
It was more of a, I think it was more of a process where, like I found myself following a lot of cake pages locally and nationally. And I found when I would make stuff without thinking about it, I was being influenced in a way. So I unfollowed everyone and everything. And I thought, if I'm gonna create and develop, I kind of need to, if I get to the same result as these other people, fine. But if I do it through my creative process, then I know in my mind I've started to create something, and then it can expand from there. So it was pretty much in the inception of when I started in the markets, thinking, okay, I need to be different to every brownie business or every donut business, and I kind of put it into the name where Desserts by Dre kind of gives me a wide scope of to do a lot of things, but I'll give you a quick example here. So in the summer, everyone was doing ice cream and soft serve ice cream and stuff like that, and I saw it and I almost purchased the ice cream machine, probably £3,000 it would have been. And, you know, uh, right before the purchase, I thought, am I doing this because I want to have ice cream in my shop? Or is it because being influenced by other people? And I thought, you know what? I don't, I'm not bothered about it or not. So I didn't make the purchase, and then fast forward a month after, I was like, I'm so glad I didn't take this route. And it allowed me to create something different and offer a different product for the customer, So that's which is very, very important to me, being different for a purpose.
Well, mate, one press play again. Don't worry, I'll edit that. The pause bit will get added out. Just when you were talking about creativity, one of the things that I like that probably not many other people know is that so a lot of things don't happen overnight, and a lot of people see that your menu changes day in, day out. I always wonder, probably wondering how's he coming up with all of this? Can you just say how many individual bets and recipes that you've got roughly?
Well, if it to put it quite frankly, we've got about a combination of last check was about 600 different combinations. But we have about 50 base products that we use to generate the combinations, and we try to make them make sense. I try to make them make sense, and because it doesn't make sense to be different just to be different. The customer always also wants to taste something that tastes really that makes sense. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, like you wouldn't put lemon and dark and well, I wouldn't put lemon and dark chocolate together. Like
I
chocolate
wouldn't put
lemon
dark
meringue
chocolate in
pie.
anything. Oh no.
Yeah, Um, but yeah, it's the and I've got like cookbooks from the 60s and the 70s, and it's something I've thought and dreamed about all my life, so I wake up, I think about cake, and I go to sleep thinking about cake.
So do I. The only difference is I'm probably a chunk heavier than you round the front at the moment. But that's from the cake you bring in the office because it takes some. But yeah, they know when to stop. I don't. So a lot of yours just end up in me. Um, yeah. So, folks, part of what you're saying from that, and let me know if I'm taking your words the wrong way, is you've obviously built up that huge bank of variations. Um, but there's a lot of trial and error in there, though, isn't it? So it's not just I've suddenly gone, this is what works. It's you've had to go through 600 variations of products and probably more to go, you know what? These are the 600 that have worked so far and do work, which gives you to change your countertop day in and day out. So again, just a ballpark figure, how many different recipes, batches do you think that you've attempted over the years to result in having 600 variations in your menu?
Well, you know what? To be honest, I think in the thousands. When a gato is photoed and stuck on Instagram, there's probably 10 different gatos that I've been through, that didn't work, and I set it and it falls apart, it turns over, and you have a laugh in the kitchen about it. Sometimes we take photos and take fun of each other, when it doesn't work, but it's the beauty of it, the thing is that striving for perfection will always create failure. You know, it's just you just have to keep going and trying to keep trying. You know, like there's fun in failure. I see it. You know, it gives you an opportunity to look at what you've done wrong, readjust and make it right.
You're absolutely right, mate. Success isn't necessarily about getting something right. It's getting it wrong enough times first to know what to do right at the end, because you only truly learn by getting it wrong in the first place. If you always got it right, there'd be nothing to learn from, and you wouldn't know why it went right. Um,
Absolutely.
but I suppose then at what point did you kind of realize that it was going right? Obviously, you'd left the market, you'd gone into the shop on Penny Lane. Was it around about November 2022?
December.
I know I
Yeah.
was definitely in there, and my photo, December 2022, I know my photo definitely got taken. Um, it was a really good one as well, but I can't remember you guy that did it, and I kind of want it. But I know the financial point at which I kind of opened up Zero, looked at it, and went, "Wow, well, this is different to what it was when he started up." But for you, what was the point where you kind of went, "Wow, this isn't just it's not me at a market anymore, or it's not just me behind a counter anymore. It's not just me in a small team. I need to involve. I know your team's not big, but I'm. You get to a point where you think, you know what, I can't do this on my own anymore. When was that point for you? And what kind of hit you? You go, shit. Um, there's something going on here.
You know what's it's funny. It happened before I opened the shop.
Hmm.
Um, so it was a market that I had, and I, like been posting on social media and everything like that. And the market opened at 10 o'clock, and at 9:30, saw this massive queue outside the bombed up church, and said, I don't know, so maybe something's going on, And the second it opened at 10, I think we had a queue of maybe 60 people. And, you know, like it really woke me up to be like, okay, that I'm doing something right here. Like I need to take these next steps. And Gareth, it took me a year, maybe a year and a half after that point before I opened the shop in Penny Lane, you know. So, the fear of, okay, you're going into a different sector, it's different overheads and it's staff and all the extra bits. And as I got into the shop and I opened, there was almost relief of having the shop to be like, okay, everything can be here, in one place. And but as I think we closed in January for a couple of weeks break, came back, and then January was busy, and February we were busy. And you know I started to think, well, usually there's a bit of a lull, but the momentum kept going, and you go to the middle of the year, and then the momentum's still going. And then and then it was like, okay, maybe, all right, like, I need to take a step back from this. It's like almost being in quicksand, and you're slowly sinking, and you're like, okay, I need to find a twig to hold on to get out of this. But it, I guess when you're in the middle of the engine room, you can't see what's going on outside, But it was at those few pivotal moments that I realized, okay, um, I've got a concept here that's working. I need to keep applying pressure to it, and instead of taking the foot off the gas at that, I just accelerated a bit more to create more momentum than for when those months are quiet.
No, it's brilliant, mate. Done this a lot sooner, if I'm completely honest, because one of the things that I speak to, especially like some of the smaller clients we've got about, is that moment where, well, I call it the oh shit moment. It's the moment where you do go, oh shit. Um,
Hmm.
there's something going right here. It's not that anything's going bad or breaking down. It's something
Hmm.
going right. And that's the bit where a lot of people start panicking. They don't panic necessarily when it's going wrong because they're expecting it to go wrong at some point. But it's when it starts going really right, that's when they do the opposite of what put your foot on the gas and when I'm going to go through. Whereas most people kind of go, shit, I'm traveling too fast. I need to take my foot off for a little bit. And that's where they
Mm,
kind of you hit a point where all of those liabilities that you've been gathering to try and get yourself to the point where you are starting to outgrow the revenue that you've coming in because you've taken your foot off the gas.
mm,
And that's where a lot of guys kind of hit I think it's usually from when I've looked across all the clients that we've got, it's around about the £200,000 mark or the equivalent of, if you're doing 17, 18,000, where that's the point where most places that have gone from start up with nothing to 17, 18, they kind of go, oh,
mm.
this isn't a me job anymore. It's a we job.
It's a wee job, yeah.
Um, what they do, like I said, yeah, they do the opposite of what you said, where they tend to slow down, take the foot off, or turn the engine off. I'm muting myself. They tend to take the foot off altogether rather than thinking, if I push through this, that 18 a month is going to be 30, and that 30 is going to be 40, and the difference it has to yourself and your personal bank account and your own life when you hit £40,000 a month, just as a figure is it's honestly it's astronomical because you move from the point of worrying about paying yourself, 700, 800 quid a month and maybe taking some dividends here and there to being able to pay yourself 30 or £40,000 a year. And
Hmm.
find that with businesses that I work with, once they hit that point and they can pay themselves what they deem a decent wage, which is different for everyone, that is the point where their mindset completely it's already changed because they've hit the 200k mark and they've pushed through eventually. When they then hit that kind of 35, 40 grand a month mark and they're able to pay themselves properly, the mind shift just goes, and the mindset rather just shifts completely. um but for you, I can't wait to see when you start approaching that kind of level to see how much your mind changes if it does, because you were already ahead of the curve in terms of just starting off your business on the right foot with the right mentality and then hitting that point where you just went, well, I'm going to plow through it. So I can't wait to see when it goes up again and again and again of how you react to that. Not that I'm treating you like a guinea pig or anything, but I do really want to see that. Um, so I suppose gone all over the shop in terms of the questions I've been asking. So
Mm.
one of the couple of the key bits that I want to get in there, the first one would be like, how did it start and why?
Well, it started. I said I'll tell people it started when before puberty. Like I was always baking and having fun, and growing up in Barbados in the church. I was in the youth group, and we'd raise funds, so we do bake sales, and I always wanted to be part of it. And going into college, you know, raising funds, I would do bake sales as well, and it was just always a hobby and a love, and inspired by my trips to America as a kid. Going to America, everything in America is ridiculous. So when you see the desserts over there, it's just as a kid, it's starry eyed. And I in Barbados, obviously, like we were quite limited to the things we had to produce. So when I came to England and I had access to, things as simple as double cream, fresh strawberries, and I just started experimenting a lot. And like a lot of people don't know that I tried starting this business up maybe 10, 12 years ago, when I was living in Warrington, and I did a couple markets there, and I found I didn't it didn't work then, um, and then I took a little step back, and I had to deal with some personal issues, etc., etc. And then I thought, you know what, it's time to go again, and give it a go in a different way and approach it in a different sense, and and see what happens. And yeah, and just started. I went did some research in the markets, and I thought, you know what, I think I can do it. Let me do one, and never look back since. And those first year markets were, it was horrendous. Like trying to build a customer base and you know putting stuff in the bin because people wouldn't buy it, and like going to work and taking cakes and saying, please buy this, yeah. So I've got enough stock money to buy something else to make, and I started it with 30 quid worth of stock, to do one market, 50 pieces, and that's where it began, literally £30.
It's a brilliant story, mate. When you go back to 10, 12 years ago, it didn't work the time, which it doesn't. Did that put you off doing it again, or did you kind of think, I do want to do it, but now's kind of not the right time for it?
Well, it's always been a dream of mine to have my own cake shop, literally like a childhood dream. Some of us dream to be firemen and policemen, and I just dream to be surrounded by cake and cheesecake. And at that time, you know, I was lucky enough to notice that I didn't have the correct mindset to to do the business, because a lot of the business comes down to my mindset and how I approach problems, and I didn't have the experience to tackle problems, but going into the kitchens, chefing taught me a lot, and I learned that uh, the higher up you go, it's not how good you are at cooking, but it's how quickly you resolve problems and how many tricks and cowboy moments you have, and that's what move that the knowledge of your approach is what moves you up the ranks, and eventually having my stint in the kitchens, really taught me that premise. So when I was ready to approach it again, I think I approached it in the mindset that, I've failed already, so I know what that feels like, So let's see what being successful might feel like. Let me see. Let me see if I could get that feeling.
Oh, it's a brilliant way to look at it, mate. And keep the same phrase. One of the things that I talk about, but we both know that I talk quite a lot anyway. Um, One of the things that I do talk about, it's very, very similar. So when I have clients that are, they're struggling or they're panicking because they're at that kind of oh shit moment, I ask, and you've already been through it, what's the worst case scenario? You shut. Okay. What'll happen then? I'll get a job. What'll happen then? Well, I'll earn more money than I am now, working less hours for better treatment. Okay, what'll happen then? Well, I'll probably be okay, what'll happen then? I'll start my business again, knowing where I went wrong the last time. So I'm really glad that I've actually recorded you kind of saying what you said. I did it, it didn't work, I cracked on, and then it was a while later, but a while later I did it again and I learned from what I did the first time, which is perfect. I'm gonna have you on all of like my tins with a with potential client. I suppose one of the biggest things that I get asked about you, from clients that I've got or people that I speak to is where does the following come from on social media? Because for a business that's been up and running you've been up and running for a few years now, but
Mhm.
obviously a lot of people knew who you were. You've kind of appeared more on the map since opening in Penny Lane because it's that fixed location thing.
Mhm.
It's having the bricks and mortar site where people go, "Oh, that guy's serious." I'm not saying you weren't before,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it's there's something about having a row of stone in front of you that makes that's a real thing. That,
Mhm.
um, but yeah, one of the biggest questions I get asked is, "How on earth have you built your following? Who does he use? What does he do?" And my answer usually is, "I'm sure that Dre does pretty much all of his own content anyway, and he just
Mhm.
records things." or he records himself recording things, which is one of the ones that I really like. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, in your own words, mate, rather than third party coming from me.
Well, it is actually one of the questions that I get asked most about with other people as well, I always I always give the same answer. I said, look, I do all of the social media. I built the website. I did just figured it out, and I don't really know exactly how like fully the tool of Instagram works, Um, but I see it as an extension of like that was my first bricks and mortar in my mind, Instagram, So I treat it as if, it was my shop, So what how do I want to present my bricks and mortar, even though it's digital? And I didn't want to be too perfect or too serious. I wanted to be relatable, and but what gives me the most content is I focus all of my attention into my product. It's not how I take the picture or how many filters are on it or whatever. For me, it's literally like when I post something, I want people to be like, right, I need to go and eat that, and then that equates to a purchase. So like if I post a picture and I get 20 likes, or I post a picture and I get 500 likes, to me personally, it doesn't matter, but I know how that equates in sales. The thing for 20 likes, I might sell 150 of them in a weekend. The 500 like one might die in the shop, it might be wastage, so like it people, and I mean as well, like my social media, like 80% of the following is local to Liverpool and the Wirral,
Hmm.
and it, there is really no rhyme or reason to what it works, why it works. I could only put it down to the fact that you know I try to make something that someone would want to eat, and they know, okay, well, Saturday we'll go to Dre's and we'll get this slice of cake this Saturday, um, and like being too perfect, I find it doesn't work, because none of us live a perfect life. It's like the people you see where, like they stood up in front of brand new car and, fancy everything. And, it actually creates the quite of the opposite of what you want it to create, so it creates
Hmm.
resentment as opposed to attachment, or attraction. But yeah, I just, you know what, I just guess it. Like I'm finding new places in Instagram, be like, oh, this is what this is for, like and like you kind of just it's just you're just trialing and see what works and what doesn't work. But one thing I've noticed is that people really like to see the person behind the business.
Hmm.
They want to know a bit more about you. Luckily for me, I have that independent lane shop where people could speak to me in person, and but I think people are interested in what it takes to get everything together. Like you have a coffee shop, they want to know what what you do in the morning, what you take to set up, and the stresses of the shop, and a bit like voyeurism. Everyone loves a bit of Big Brother.
I suppose the reason behind that is the human element of it, isn't it? It's not all this is a nice cake, but they are all aesthetically pleasing, and every single one that you've brought to our office is always it's outstanding, and like it is a big portion, which I'm always really happy about. But people like to see a human element of it, and it's why a lot of independents do really, really well at the start and great gain a lot of traction is because they have to have a huge human element in there. And you
Yeah.
often find that that traction slows as they grow because they think, well, I'll give away my social media, I'll have somebody else, I'll never be in the shop. I'll be doing this, that, and the other, or X, Y, and Z, and all of a sudden there is no human element. It's just pictures of dates and menu boards and stuff like
Mm.
that. One of my favorite pictures on your Instagram, this is how far back I've kind of stalked, is it's a picture of you taking a picture of a product in a light box, and I'm sure it's like in your living room or something. You like
Yeah,
stood on
yeah,
a
yeah.
couch, and it's honestly it's my favorite picture. You can't, I don't know, I don't remember what you're taking a picture of, but it shows
Mm,
even though it's obviously kind of staged because somebody's taking a picture of you taking a picture, but when you're viewing that um like from a personal perspective on Instagram or whichever, you're essentially getting an eye, a first person view, sorry, of you literally doing everything from I've made it, I've taken a picture of it, I've posted it, I've set the counter up. And it's not all because it's you in there. That's obviously a really big bonus, but there's a huge human element of your social media every single day that everybody can see. And that's one of the big things for me that really, really works. It's having your own face because it's your business, being the one in front of it, not necessarily the one in front of the shop all the time,
mm,
but the one that's visible to everyone when they look through the eyes of social media, if you like. One of the questions I've been asked to ask you is, and I know we've spoken about scarcity quite a bit, but we won't go into those kind of bits and bobs. But one of one of my clients and my wife as well asked me, do customers not get fed up at the fact that you run out quite often? So obviously, with it being baked fresh,
mm-hmm,
you want to run out because if you don't run out, it's going in the bin. But you more often than not have to shut long before your opening times because you've sold out. So
mm-hmm,
somebody's asked me, is why does he not just bake more?
mm-hmm.
But
Right.
that
So
that's the question then.
yeah. So there's a how I can say it, there's a bit of a science behind it in a way as well. Um, so we kind of keep numbers of how much stuff we produce. So like the third week of the month, we know it's quiet, so we reduce a little bit more. We also know that we might post something that we know people are going to come for, so we'll increase production or something like that. We tend to try to have enough product to get us until about half an hour, maybe an hour before we close. So I think it's ridiculous if you open and you shut in an hour or 2 hours. You definitely are losing out on sales and stuff like that. But it's just trying to find a balance between um having the correct amount of product, you know, minimum wastage and being open for the trading hours, and I think I get two types of customers. So I get the customer who comes later in the day because there's only four options and it makes it easier for them to choose. Then I've got the customer that comes in the morning who wants all 25 options to buy. They want the stress of choosing, and they buy 10 pieces of cake. But like the I think the customer kind of understands, okay, if you come later, there's a chance that you won't get what you want. If you want what you want, you gotta come early for it. And I find the customers are telling their friends, "Oh, I went early and I got this." So their friends come early and purchase. But it we tend not to we tend to get to about half an hour, 45 minutes before we close, which I think is a good time. But we got people that come 10 minutes before the shop will close, and expecting a full counter, but it's difficult when the product is fresh. And because we
Of
change it every day as well, we want to run out and offer different things for different days. Like Friday, we get more school kids and parents in, so we gear towards them on a Friday. On a Sunday, it's more dessert type stuff because people are having roast dinners and going to see friends
Mm.
and so like I, I take a step back and I sit down and we keep list and tally and you keep looking at that information weekly and readjusting almost on a weekly basis to it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work, but it creates an excellent customer experience. We've got a book. I've got a book here with every single thing I baked from the first market to now. I could scroll back 4 years and tell you what I baked on this market in Warrington. Um, and we use it like sometimes I might get a bit of creator's block and I'll just go to the book and I'll be like, oh yeah, I've not made this in 2 years. Or I'll put this on a counter. You know, and sometimes things are trendy. But it I think there's a little frustration, but it's not an anger. You know, and you know what? To be honest, most people that do come late, the next time they come there before the shop opens, and they're like, okay, this is the difference between when you come at between 10 and 12 or between 3 and 4.
No, that's perfect, mate. I've only got a couple of questions left because I
Okay.
appreciate that it's 10 to 2 now. So my first really quick question, what is the furthest that a customer has traveled to either Penny Lane or to any one of the markets you've been at specifically to come and get one of your cakes?
I think I had someone, I think Halifax. Halifax. I think like after Manchester, you go through the moors. Is that Halifax? I think.
My geography's appalling, but yeah, it's
I
more
think
northeast than it is northwest.
yeah. The I think Halifax, Wigan. We had someone come from Wales. Um, Funnily enough, we had um a a, a couple come from Cardiff, and they planned their trip around when the shop was going to be open, or they could come and get cake then. But we want to be a destination, so we're working very hard at becoming that. So I think Halifax probably is the furthest someone's driven to come and get some cake.
Well, Cardiff, it's what 200 and two
Yeah,
hundred
five
miles,
hours it
200
was
and
on.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I venture there every so often. So this is just a note for anybody who says that I work in a remote venue and I don't have a lot of passing traffic, whereas we've got Dre in front of us who has got people driving from, let's call it another country because Wales is
Pretty much, yeah.
for a brownie or for a cheesecake.
Yeah.
So anybody that says I don't have enough traffic,
And
oh
Penny
man.
Lane, Penny Lane actually does not have a lot of passing trade either,
I wouldn't
contrary
have
to
thought
popular
so.
belief.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's got a lot of traffic on the way into town near
Yes.
you, but not necessarily past your shop. So I think the last question before I let you go is what is in store for the future?
Well, the future, we are definitely going to dabble into some delivery, late night delivery. I mean, we already had the structure set up, so we just finding our feet with the shop, and then going into that area, because you don't want to spread yourself too thin, and then stuff starts to fail, and I see it like it's a marathon, not a sprint, so we gotta pace ourselves. But late night delivery, something that we're getting into, and we also, are gearing in towards some savory bits. So I have 3 chefs working in the business. Um, so it's time to pull on some of the resources and spread out the brand a little bit more and introduce people to the fact that we can do some savory. savory stuff as well, you know. So yeah, definitely late night desserts we're going into, and you know, a bit of a savory bit, you know, and potentially doing some events when we get some next year, you know, when we get some time. But yeah, that's for the future, you know. Hopefully, be able to grow the brand a bit bigger.
Thanks for that, Dre. It was an absolute pleasure to get to listen to the whole story. Some of it I haven't heard before. For anybody watching or listening, Dre has said that if you've got any questions or comments for him, because I know that I get a lot of questions and comments for him from my own clients, don't be afraid to drop them in the comments below, record a video, send it back, drop an email, absolutely anything. Dre's more than happy sharing the knowledge that he's used to get himself where he is. But yeah, thanks for watching.